Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Michaela Mayer, do you have a message to Mary Spencer before you step into that ring to take her throne?
Be ready. I think it's definitely going to be the fight of her life. It's going to be the toughest fight. No questions asked. I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been. I know she made a comment about the Hamadouche fight from several years ago about, and about how much I get hit and how she's going to knock me out. But I'm holding her better than I was then. Also, Hamadouche probably would have pummeled her by round 6. So condition well. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be the toughest fight. And I hope you enjoyed being champion.
Oh, you hear that, Mary Spencer? I'm talking some shit. She has some fighting words for you. Come condition, come prepare for war.
That was two-division world champion Michaela Mayer with a few choice words for Mary Spencer, who she will be facing north of the border in a little over a week's time. You heard what she said. So many words. Mary's reign as WBA junior middleweight champion is about to come to an abrupt end. And I think most people would agree with Michaela, those familiar with the fight and the fighters, but the biggest question ahead of it has been, where the hell are we supposed to watch it, since Top Rank has yet to announce a new broadcast partner? Well, it would seem that information has finally come down the pipeline. It was Top Rank via an official press release that stated Top Rank, the worldwide leader in boxing promotion, has launched dedicated 24/7 channels on Roku, Tubi, Vizio, and Pluto, bringing the sport's most memorable showdowns and legendary fighters to fans across the globe. These platforms now feature a star-studded lineup of Hall of Famers and fistic icons including Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Oscar De La Hoya, and Sugar Ray Leonard. Top Rank's library of content is second to none among combat sports brands, said Brian Kelly, Top Rank's chief revenue officer. We are proud to partner with Roku, Tubi, Vizio, and Pluto to create a 24/7 content home that showcases the sport's all-time greats and future legends. Top Rank's channels debut with a programming schedule packed with classics like the 3-round war between Marvelous Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns, the Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales trilogy, Evander Holyfield's heavyweight clash with George Foreman, and the 1999 Fight of the Year between Paulie Ayala and Johnny Tapia. The lineup will continually be refreshed to highlight Top Rank's current roster of stars, including Naoya Inoue, Brian Gortex, Abdullah Mason, Emmanuel Navarrete, Michaela Mayer, and Rafael Espinoza. This is where you can watch Mayer versus Spencer next week on Friday. The only semblance of a broadcast deal of any kind for Top Rank since the ESPN deal ended. What it really is a means for Top Rank to use their extensive catalog of fights as a means to generate residual revenue with a series of smaller broadcasters. Tubi, Pluto. It's obviously not a substitute for ESPN. It can't fill that void, but what it can do for them is generate some revenue in the mean in between time, because you have to imagine that if Top Rank made their catalog of fights available to this series of broadcasters, it wasn't for free. It also gives them a hub to show the smaller fights going on involving Top Rank fighters like Mayer versus Spencer. I imagine Rafael Espinoza's upcoming fight south of the border in Mexico that will feature Emiliano Vargas on the undercard, Richard Torres on the undercard. That card was announced last week. I imagine that if they're gonna be showing Michaela Mayer on this fast channel, they might also show that on this fast channel. We'll see. That's just me bouncing ideas around. As stated, this is the first semblance of a deal, broadcast deal of any kind involving Top Rank. We'll see what else develops. For now, at least we know where we can watch Mayer versus Spencer. In men's junior middleweight news, Bakram Murtazaliev versus Josh Kelly. IBF purse bid postponed again. Bakram Murtazaliev was hoping to find an immediate resolution for his next appearance, but he's going to have to wait a while longer. The Ring has learned the purse bids between IBF junior middleweight champion and number 3 ranked contender Josh Kelly have been postponed until October 28th. The bid was originally scheduled to take place earlier today via video conference should Josh Kelly accept. Whatever offer is presented to him next week, he'll be in line for just 15% of the bid since he isn't their highest contender. The number 1 and number 2 spots are currently vacant. Kathy Duvia, who manages Murtazaliev and is CEO of promotional company Main Events, has attempted to find funding for their matchup and desperately wants her champion to make his return. Wait, so Josh Kelly, if this goes to a purse bid, is only entitled to 15%? Well, that almost guarantees the fight won't happen, if it makes it that far. Murtazaliev was initially under the impression that he would be facing former number 1 ranked contender Oleksandr Lubin. However, the 30-year-old withdrew and later accepted a more lucrative fight with Virgil Ortiz, which will take place at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas on November 8th, live on DAZN.
Wait, so he'd rather fight Virgil for an interim title than Bakram for a full one?
It all boils down to the money, really. He stands to make more money boxing Virgil on DAZN than boxing Bakram nowhere. You fight Bakram, where's the money supposed to come from? Because it's not going to come from Main Events. They don't have a broadcast partner. The PBC, I'm not sure that Oleksandr Lubin is still with the PBC, since his last fight was on ProBox.
Murtazaliev versus Lubin. It's not the kind of fight you break the piggy bank over.
In better times, greener pastures, when the PBC was still on Showtime and still with Fox, that would have been a fight you could easily make back when you had a broadcast budget, broadcast money. But now, this is why you're always hearing me talk about how bad things are now that all the major broadcasters have left boxing. No major broadcasters means no broadcast money. And this is how difficult the situation could become for everyone if something doesn't change. It was just over a year ago that Bakram Murtazaliev grabbed the biggest win of his career, a third-round stoppage over Tim Kazoo, in defense of the red and gold belt Josh Kelly, who's managed by Adam Booth, has won 7 straight since losing by knockout to David Abanesian back in 2021. Now he's on the cusp of world title honors, but the question is, does he really want it? Does he really want this opportunity? You see what it says. If this goes to a purse bid next week, all Josh Kelly stands to make is 15% of the overall bid, and the overall bid likely won't be much anyway, since this is not a hot ticket. Josh Kelly is not a big ticket seller, and neither is Bakram Murtazaliev, so if anybody puts any kind of money up for this fight, it likely won't be much.
What do you think? Wasserman's gonna put up a boatload of cash for this fight just to pay somebody else's fighter? Most of it would go to Bakram, since he's the defending champion, and for what? To watch Josh Kelly get his ass kicked? To watch their boy get beat?
I would be surprised if Wasserman even bothers to put a bid in for this fight. I would be surprised if anybody does, really, since there's nothing in it for some outsider, some outside promoter. Both Bakram and Josh are attached to other people, so why would you pick up a fight with 2 fighters that are promoted by somebody else? It doesn't make sense. The only way it works out to where it all works out is if Turkey LL Sheik decides to pick up this fight. If Turkey LL Sheik decides to bankroll it and add it to one of his shows he's got early next year. Because we know he's planning on doing something in the first quarter of next year, and this would make for a decent little undercard fight if you want to watch somebody get the crap beat out of them.
Short of that, it's hard to imagine that this fight happens, which is terrible news for Bakram Murtazaliev. It's already been a year since his big win over Tim Kazoo, and he hasn't had any luck getting another fight.
The reason for it, there is such a thing as being too good for your own good. The way that he destroyed Tim Kazoo, it scared the hell out of everybody. They're not going to say it. They're not going to admit it.
But that's what it is. Nobody really wants to roll the dice with this guy, least of all if there's no big money attached.
And so he hasn't fought in well over a year. He will likely sit out all of this calendar year and some portion of the next one if nothing changes. And because he's a practicing Muslim that observes Ramadan,
That doesn't give him a very big window to squeeze in a fight. He has what remains of this year and all of January and February of the next one. It's my understanding that Ramadan begins in March.
so if he sits out all of this year and he can't find nobody for January and nobody for February, it could actually end up being closer to 2 years in between the Tim Tszyu fight and his next fight.
Year and a half.
Close to 2 years. And that's how much Bakram scared the hell out of everybody when he annihilated Tim Tszyu. I've said it in other videos and live streams. I'll say it here now. Next year, if the conditions are right, Boots Ennis may be the one that takes the IBF title from Bakram. Because if that amount of time passes and Bakram doesn't fight, let's just say that Boots fights Abbas Baru in his next fight. He wins the fight. He then moves on from that to fight Bakram Murtazaliev, who will have been out a long while.
Just like Stanionis was when he fought him. When he fought him, Stanionis hadn't fought in a year.
Same exact thing could happen with Bakram, because nobody really wants to fight this guy. Now, Boots Ennis himself can hardly be faulted for what fights Bakram isn't having in the interim. That all falls on Kathy Duva. She's the one who promotes him.
I came up with a solution in my previous video. Rent him out. Rent him out to some other promoter. Enter a co-promotional deal with a Matchroom or maybe IBA. Now that the IBA is doing professional boxing matches, maybe you let them borrow Bakram.
Something needs to happen. This guy needs a fight. Desperately.
I think that Parker's also one of those guys where even from Usyk's point of view, Usyk has become overrated as a heavyweight champion historically and underrated as a pound-for-pound guy historically, right? He's one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters who ever lived.
Come on now.
But as a heavyweight, the resume, while it's excellent at the top, is a little thin. He hasn't beaten, 10 top heavyweights, right? Something like that. And even for Usyk's place in history, when you look back at the resume, he got Fury twice and he got Joshua twice. Parker will be one of those guys where even if they fight and Usyk wins, and who else did he beat? We bring up Joseph Parker to buttress Anthony Joshua's resume, right? Oh, look, he beat Joseph Parker. When you look at guys like Muhammad Ali, it's not just that he beat Frazier and Foreman and Liston and Norton. He beat Jerry Quarry and Oscar Bonavina and Ron Lyle and Ernie Shavers and Henry Cooper and Doug Jones. He beat so many top fighters. Evander Holyfield, same thing. Not just that he beat Tyson or he fought Lennox Lewis or he beat Riddick Bowe that one time. He fought, Mercer, a million different guys, Michael Dokes and now I'm forgetting everyone Holyfield fought
Bobby Chaz.
Those are you and I just gave the worst examples of the top guys he fought. But it's the fact that he fought everyone in the era, right? It makes a difference, I think.
Yeah.
That's not the first time I've heard that criticism levied towards Oleksandr Usyk's existing heavyweight resume. It was levied against him earlier this year by popular content creator Showbiz the Adult.
He said the same thing. I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now, because the only real difference between Oleksandr Usyk's resume and somebody else's is that it doesn't have any of the fluff, any of the mean-in-between fights. It's from strength to strength.
There aren't a whole lot of Tom Schwarzes and Otto Wallins in there.
Consider that Tyson Fury really only had 2 or 3 quality wins, 2 or 3, in Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder. And for that, they were already likening him to a modern-day Muhammad Ali for what were really 2 to 3 quality wins.
And a whole heap of fluff in between. With Deontay Wilder, they were likening him to a modern-day George Foreman. The most destructive puncher, or something along those lines. But destroying who? Punching who?
It's almost like American media gauges proficiency based on personality instead of pugilism.
They rate a fighter's proficiency as a pugilist based on whether or not they like them on a personal level, whether or not they can connect with them on a personal level. Tyson Fury, being such a big shit talker, that really did go over well with the Americans. But the reality of it is, Tyson Fury's resume was thinner when they started calling him a modern-day Ali than Usyk's resume is now.
They want more out of that guy. That's basically what it is.
Oleksandr Usyk says that he will not fight Moses Atama. He wants to fight till he's 41, but Atama will not be one of those opponents.
The fight never made sense. I mean, it was pushed for a little bit, but like, what would be the reason that fight would make any sense right now?
Moolah, money.
Yeah, is that the lucrative fight to be made for Usyk? I don't think so.
I think it is. I think in a year it is. I Usyk 100%.
How is
we don't need to see Usyk versus Fury again. We don't need to see Usyk versus Dubois again. We don't need to see Usyk versus Joshua. This phenom, Atoma, has to go out there and win more. And if Usyk says he's going to fight till he's 41, that's 3 more years. You're telling me in the next 3 years, Usyk Atama isn't the biggest fight you could make at heavyweight?
I don't know. I just know that getting excited about that fight right now makes no sense to me as a consumer, as a customer. I would not volunteer Italma for that fight. I would sooner volunteer the winner of Parker versus Wortley. And that's the official word from Team Usyk. Whoever wins that fight could be who Usyk fights in the coming calendar year. Usyk has sort of gone back on his word. He went from saying that he only has 1 or 2 more fights left in him to saying he's got about 5 fights left in him and he wants to continue to fight till age 41. So maybe that might satisfy some of the critics and some of the naysayers like Max Kellerman that think Usyk's resume at heavyweight could use some beefing up.
If he does fight 5 more times, who are the 5 guys? Well, the winner of Parker versus Wortley comes to mind. Perhaps Agit Kabayel. He's in position via the WBC to challenge Usyk for his belts.
So the winner of Parker versus Wortley, Agit Kabayel, who else?
Maybe the winner of Pulev versus Gassiev. Winner of that fight is going to have a WBA Reggie title. Maybe we get a rematch between Usyk and Gassiev at heavyweight.
Okay, that's 3. Who's 4?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, you talk about 2 to 3 fights down the line. Now you're talking about over a year. And over a year in the sport of boxing, a lot of things could happen. Now that Usyk could start to look his age and decide he wants to wrap it up early. He wants to bow out early before it's too late. I mean, if you ask me, he could bow out now, and he should bow out now. If you leave it up to the critics, they're never happy, they're never satisfied, they're never gonna be.
Not talking about Gervonta Davis here. We're talking about a 2-weight, 3-time undisputed champion that's fought every relevant fighter, almost every relevant fighter, from cruiser to heavy, who's in his late 30s now. What more do you want?
They want to see him fall. They want to see him lose. More than watching the hero rise, they like to watch the hero fail.
I suggest he gets out before that happens.